find that when you bring them up in discussions, people are not really aware of how they can benefit from using them in their daily work, and how do they even work together. So we thought that that might be a good chance to introduce these tools and introduce through the practical workshop, through the practical project, how you can actually start using them and what are the benefits of that. And yeah, as was mentioned, please feel free to put your questions in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll, especially if you are struggling with certain technical aspects of workshop as we go along. So we want everyone to get the most out of the workshop. And again, this is the more detailed workshop agenda. So we are going to talk about what kind of challenge are we going to solve today. And then I'll very quickly go through the environment setup. So this is the document that was shared earlier in the repository for this workshop. I just want to make sure that we all understand where we should be before starting the practical part. And then we will look quickly at the data that we're going to work with, see how we can start connecting to these data sources, then how we can model them, how DBT helps you with different aspects of data modeling. And then one of the main things that DBT really shines, where DBT really shines, is automated testing and documentation. And then I'll share some useful resources and links at the end. And of course, these slides are available in the GitHub Repo for this workshop. So before we start looking into the technical side of things, I want to introduce the challenge. It's always more interesting to do something practical and see how you can use new tools, especially to solve real life challenges. And so today we're going to look into helping some imaginary art gallery to see how we can automate their monthly commission reports, and also how we can help them to ensure that the data that they have in this report is actually correct and they're paying correct amounts to correct artists. So imagine they have different systems and different files flying around in different formats that stores data about the artist that they represent, the sales that they had this month. And every month they need to spend 3-4 days going manually, combining all these different files, and then creating the report and paying the commissions to the artists. So what we are going to have at the end of the workshop is actually the automated solution that takes all this data, somehow transforms it, and then creates as an outcome a monthly report that's updated automatically. We will also see how we can test this data and how we can make sure that it's all documented and ready for everyone to use. So we are going to use DBT Core and Snowflake in this workshop, and we will see how these two tools work together. So this is our setup, going from a lot of manual work to automated, reliable reporting. And then this is the data that we're going to work with. There are two groups, two types, let's say, so of data sets that we will have in this workshop. On the left side, you have the core data sets that you have loaded, hopefully, into Snowflake. That was one of the steps before this workshop. If not, I can quickly show you as well how to do it. So that will be our sales transactions, the inventory of artworks we have, the artist that the gallery represents. And then I also have customer data. We are not going to really use it in this particular workshop, but I just have it there if you want to expand the workflow afterwards and play around and see how you can implement it or integrate it into the pipeline. And on the right side, we have so-called reference data. So these are the CSV files with the data that doesn't really change that much, say artwork categories or gallery locations. And the most important for this workshop is commission rates. So once we establish how much we're going to pay for, say, two emerging artists versus established artists, these rates are not really going to change. So that's why it's called reference data. And I'll show you how we can use it very easily in dbt, how we can add it into our pipeline. So this is ready for you. We'll show you where it is in a second, but this is going to be outside of the Snowflake environment that you set up earlier. So we now know what we're going to work with, what kind of challenge we're going to solve. We know what kind of data we're going to work with. And now let's see what kind of tools we're going to work with to actually solve this. So if you can either maybe put in the chat, or there are reactions in Zoom as well. If you can say, have you ever worked with dbt or Snowflake before? If you can just maybe thumbs up, just to see where we're actually standing in terms of the experience. Either of these tools or both, that would be great. Okay, perfect. I see a no. Yeah, exactly. I see a lot of no's, and that's exactly what I wanted to see, because I want you to come fresh and learn a lot of things today. So you are in the perfect place today. Thank you for joining us. And let's talk quickly about what are these tools in general. So first on the left side is dbt. dbt is basically a Python library, especially we're using dbt core today. It's an open source tool that helps you to build your data transformation pipelines using SQL. There is an option as well to use Python. We're not going to look at it today, but just so you know. And one of the main ideas behind building your pipelines with dbt is to make them modular. So instead of you repeating the same logic in different places of your pipeline, you can create it once and then reference it rather than repeat it in different scripts throughout the project. dbt also helps you, and we will see in a second, to manage the dependencies. So without you really specifying this script should run first and then this one should run afterwards, dbt automatically understands how, in which order the scripts should run. dbt also, and you clone the repo, dbt helps you to apply version control to your pipelines. So all the transformations, they go through the normal best software development practices, meaning that you have your code stored in the GitHub repo, you have the branches, the control of what changes which scripts. And as I said, that dbt also has the great features for automatically generate the documentation, but also automate the testing of your pipeline. So when something happens with the data in terms of the data quality, you do know what to look out for and where to check these issues. So that's the transformation tool that we're going to use, dbt. And then the Snowflake, that's going to be our data warehouse that actually powers the transformations that we will design in dbt. So Snowflake is, as I said, is a data platform that's a cloud native. It runs, it's cloud agnostic, so it runs on different clouds. There are quite a few regions that you can use it in. Again, it's originally started, and it still is very strong on the standard SQL approach. So you can do a lot of things, a lot of transformations using just the standard SQL language. You also separate in Snowflake storage and compute, meaning that you can scale up either storage or compute if you need to and when you need to. So it's really flexible for different workloads. And also you can apply features like time travel, or that enables you to, say, restore something that you deleted, or you can also share data in a secure, protected environment with other parties that have or don't have Snowflake accounts. So there are quite a few features that that you can use, and this is just scratching the surface, but it's enough for us today. So now we understand what we're going to work with today. One thing I wanted to talk about a little bit before we dive into the practical part is what are we going to build at the end? So the idea is to build the automated reporting, but how are we going to build it is by the modeling our data. In this workshop, we're going to use dimensional data modeling approach. There are quite a few other ways to model your data. Say data vault is quite a popular one as well, but dimensional data modeling is a very established approach. And what it does, but what we will do basically in this case is we will have our raw data sources and the so-called seed files on the left side, you can see, so data coming into our pipeline. So these are the files that were supplied, the CSV files. They will be brought into the so-called bronze layer. That's where you usually have very minimal data cleaning or data preparation, maybe deduplication of your data. Say, if you need to also cast data to different data types, that's the place to do it. And then once you cleaned up your data, once it's nice and ready for transformations, we will move into the silver layer. So that's the blue square in our schema, and that's where we're going to build the dimension and fact tables. So this is just grouping out data so it's easy to work with it and easy to query it. Dimension tables are going to be the tables that we are going to, let's put it this way, slice our data by. Say, for example, we can have a table with all the artists that we represent, or maybe all the gallery locations. So something that you can group your data by, that's usually referred as dimension. And then the fact table will be the table where we have our facts. So certain actions that happens, in our case, it's sales of artworks. But say if you think about the shop, it can be also, say, sales of products they have there. If you have some other industries, I don't know, maybe if you are in logistics, so how many packages you sent yesterday, how many were delivered, and so on. So facts are usually some kind of results that happened, and it's usually expressed in numerical values. Like again, sales in our case will be, say, dollar amounts, for example. And then once we're done with all this modeling, once we have a clear idea of what dimensions and what facts do we have, then we move to the last layer in our data model, the purple one on the right, the gold layer, and that's where you will have the data ready for reporting. It can be an aggregated data, it can be maybe filtered data, so you can have different slices of data available for different people across the organization, for different users. And if you look at this schema in simple squares, this is just a very generic representation. But this is how it will look like, hopefully, by the end of the workshop in your DBT project. So this is a screenshot from the lineage that DBT provides. And again, we will see how you can get to this and how you can explore it. But you can see that it actually shows you how your data flows from left to right, from your green raw sources to bronze to silver, and then at the end, it cut a little bit the words, but the purple bit on the right is the gold layer, so the final model ready for your reporting. And you might say, well, I work with data. Why do I need to bother with all this modeling? I'm okay already. And it's fine if you need to do some kind of ad hoc analysis or just play with the data for some one-off project. But for the reporting or for some kind of ongoing analysis, that's the best way to approach, to model the data, to bring different data sources together, to make sure that the whole organization, say in this case, our network of galleries, they will have access to the same report where the metrics are calculated in the same exact way, where we have an understanding of what is happening with data. So not 5 people across the organization doing certain transformations that are different, and hence they will give you a different result. So that's one of the main reasons to model your data, to bring it all together in this structured, logical way, because that helps you to create this single source of truth in your organization. And of course, it's also helping you to make sure that your performance of reporting or data transformations is optimized. So if you need, for example, in this case, if you need to update an artist table, you can update just the artist table and you don't need to rebuild the whole pipeline. And we will see actually how you can make changes without rebuilding the rest of the workflow. And then, of course, you can also check for data quality, continuously check for data quality and make sure that your data is transformed correctly and the results are as you expect. So this is a little bit of a theoretical introduction into the dimensional data model. It hopefully will be much easier to see how it builds up as we go layer by layer. But I just wanted to show that this is the result that we are aiming for in this workshop. So this were kind of like an introduction to the challenge and the workshop. And before we dive in, I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page. So for this workshop in the repo, there was the document which should have helped you to set up your Snowflake trial account, load the data, the CSVs that I shared into this account to create tables. You should also have Python and dbt core set up. I recommend using a virtual environment, as I described in the document. You can skip it if you want to, but that's usually the best way to go. And then basically at the end of the setup instructions, you should be able to run dbt and get the result. Not run dbt, but connect to Snowflake from dbt and don't get any errors. So I'll show you in a second how it looks like. And I forgot to mention that, but I'm using, let me just skip slides already. I'm using VS Code, so you can see on the right side to run the code. You can, of course, use any other different IDE, but that's what I'm going to do to use on my side. So that's a little bit of an intro into what we're going to do today. Just also if you can maybe do thumbs up or just in the chat if you can say, maybe if you can say if you had any issues with setting things up. If you didn't, that's great. We can continue with the workshop then. Okay, I don't see any messages, so that means that hopefully that everyone was able to go through the instructions. And just to kind of make it clear, so this is what you should have in Snowflake. On the right side, you can see that I have the prod raw database, and then the tables that I loaded from the CSV files. And then if we look on the left side where I have my IDE, you should be able to, let me make a little bit, no, that's a little bit too small. You should be able to basically run dbt debug, and that just checks that your connections are working fine, that all your profiles and credentials are set up correctly. So basically you should get this connection test okay. And that means that everything is set up and we are ready to go. So hopefully that's all working on your side. So let's now start with actually the first step. So let's build our bronze layer. As I was saying, we just need to, in this case, we don't really have any data cleaning to do. but it's just a good practice to have this bronze layer set up properly. And so first, before we even start going into the creating SQL files, I just wanted also to walk a little bit through the structure of the DBT project. What are the main files? What are we going to use today? So for now, let me just make it a little bit bigger. So if you have cloned the repo from the GitHub, you should see the folder that's called workshop. So this is the one that we're going to be working from today. This is the main folder. So if you are not already in this folder, make sure that you cd there. And in this workshop folder, we have data sources. These are the tables that you use to create tables in Snowflake. But then the main folder is the gallery project. So this is the usual structure of the DBT project. The main things here are DBT project YAML file. That's the document that basically just outlines any project level settings or variables maybe that you want to use. And if you can see, so it's opened on the right, I say I want to use this profile for my project, and that is found in DBT profiles folder. We'll look at it in a second. But if you can have, that means you can have different profiles with potentially different settings, potentially also connecting to different accounts or different databases. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then these are just absolutely standard settings to say, hey, DBT, these are the folders where you can find certain types of objects like models or tests or seeds or macros. And I'll walk through this in a second. But these are all generic settings, so we didn't really need to change anything. One of the things that we are going to benefit from today in this workshop is this set of settings on the line 34 forward. So these are the settings for models. And this is where you can set the type of materialization for your models that you create in different levels, in different folders. As you can see, we have bronze, silver, and gold. So instead of setting this up at individual model level, which you can do as well, you can set this up here and say, all my models in bronze folder should be views. So you can forget about this metallization topic, and then just DBT will understand that everything, unless you specify otherwise, will be created as a view, and the same for tables and views as well. So that's usually the standard approach for the bronze and gold layer, to have objects created as views so users can access the most up-to-date data fast. But then silver usually is materialized as tables, because that's where a lot of transformation happen. And then if you have them also as views, that just might be a little bit too heavy on the data warehouse side. So it will take a long time to actually run all these transformations for you if it's as a view. So tables are usually the way to go in the silver layer. So this was our DBT project, very generic file, as you can see. And then the one that this project references, so the profiles, is in the DBT profiles folder, profiles YAML. And this is the one where you set up the connections that you want to use, or again, certain variables that can be different for different profiles or different environments. So in this case, if we look at this section for the development, so in DBT it's called target, but basically you can think about it as a development environment. So you can have development and production. So we are going to work in the development environment during this workshop. And here we have all these settings. What's the account number, account ID, who is your user, password, role, database, and so on. So I will show you also, these are, say, especially database warehouse schema. these are just default values, but I will show you where you can specify for individual models which database and warehouse and schema to use in Snowflake. So again, profiles is basically who you are, where do you want to connect to, what kind of place do you want to use to load this data. And we are going to work with dbt and Snowflake today, but dbt can connect to different data warehouses. So this profiles document can be slightly different depending on the data warehouse. So do check the documentation on dbt side because they have quite a lot of examples there. So that's our profile, and you can see that we're using quite a lot of environment variables and var here, which are set up in our file .env, the one that you also was one of the steps in the preparation for the workshop. So if I go here, have my password, I'll change it. But this is basically the document where you can set up, again, the username, password, which profile, where your profiles are saved, and all these different environment variables. So instead of you updating the profiles file, you can share it like I did, for example, with all of you in the repo. I did not share the environment variables. This is in my gitignore file. But instead, I just share the profiles with you, and then you update your environment variables, keep them safe. But then dbt, once you start using it, it understands that it connects to your environment file and picks up this environment variables. So you don't need to change the profiles file. You just need to change your environment variables, environment.env file, like I hope you did to get the settings for this workshop. So we looked at the dbt project file, dbt project YAML. Then we have the profiles YAML. So dbt project is what project is about. Profiles is who is going to use and where are you going to create the objects. So that's great. And then I wanted also to mention the structure of the project. It's again quite standard. So gallery project is our root folder for the dbt project, and then it should include models folder. That's where we're going to create our SQL files to create objects in Snowflake. There is also a seeds folder. Actually, if you look inside, you will see that these are as I mentioned them earlier, reference files that we're going to use as well. We will look into this in more detail in a second, but this is where you can save the CSV files that are not like a lookup tables or reference files that are not changing that frequently, but can be useful, like say if I click commission rates, this is just the CSV file with details about which artist tier gets which commission rate value. And then another one, so you can also write custom tests. You can also use macros folder. We're not going to look at it in this workshop. It's a little bit more of an advanced topic. But I have saved and I documented them as well. So you can go back and after the workshop and see a little bit more in detail how they work. But basically, these are the macros that I always use when I work with dbt. So they enable the dynamic renaming of database schema and the name of the object. Because we're going to work, if we have time, I'll show you quickly at the end of the workshop, but we are going to work today in the development environment. So we are going to work obviously in different Snowflake accounts, but imagine if you are working in the same Snowflake account with at least two other, or even just one other developer who is doing something different, but potentially maybe working on same objects as you are. So we will see how in Snowflake you will be able to separate using these macros your databases and schemas. So potentially you're not overwriting someone else's work. So these are the macros that are there for you. You don't need to tell dbt somehow specifically to use this macro. So it's going to apply it by default, but I just wanted to make sure that that you know that this folder is there. And you can write, it's a lot of gingers. You can see this is the actual macro. You can write them as well to maybe create some repeating logic as a macro and then just reference it instead of just adding the same logic everywhere. Right, so this was a little bit of things about the dbt project and the structure, how to find different parts of the project. So before we jump in, I see that there are no questions in the chat, but just to make sure that I check. Let me know if there are any questions or if we can move on to build our first model. Okay. There are no questions, it seems like. Great. So let's build our first model. And for that, we're going to go into the folder that's called models. So again, make sure that you are in the you are located in the workshop gallery project folder. You can run the commands from the root folder. It's just a little bit annoying that you will have to type the full path. So that's why it's much easier to have everything at the project level. So you just reference the models instead of just typing models, bronze, and all that. So let me set this up. So we are going to work with the bronze layer first. And if we look at our data in Snowflake, in the prod raw, so we see that we have 4 different tables. These are the ones that you created based on the CSV files. And these are the ones that we're going to use now to build the bronze layer. Before we start writing the model actually in dbt, that reminds me, let's create additional databases for our development environment, so then we can run our models. So similar like you did when you created the prod raw database in Snowflake for this workshop, there are quite a few changes in the UI, so apologies if something didn't look like it was on the screenshots. They have been releasing changes to different accounts at different times. But you should see, say, a catalog on the left side in Snowflake, and then there is a big blue button to add the plus database. So again, similar to how you added databases for the workshop. So we would need to add 3 databases. So it will be dev bronze. We just create empty databases, nothing to load there. Dev silver, while we're at it. And the last one is dev gold. So we are ready for all our level layers to be created afterwards by dbt. So now you should have prod raw, that's the one you created before the workshop, and then 3 new databases, dev underscore bronze, dev underscore gold, and dev silver. It's just a normal convention to create them with the uppercase, so that's why I'm using the uppercase here. Right, so now we have these databases. We're going to work with dev bronze in this step. So let's now move into our VS Code or the IDE in general. And let's look at the bronze folder. So if you look into the bronze folder in the workshop directory, you will see that there are actually already 2 YAML files. So I wanted to save you some typing time and actually explain what these different files mean and how dbt uses them. So we are at the first layer of our data model. We are just going to connect to the data in Snowflake. So this is our sources, and that is where the sources YAML file is where we specify which database and schema to go and look for them. Let me bring the dbt actually to the side here. So this is our prod raw and the source data schema. And then the names of the tables. So again, this has to be, of course, matching with the Snowflake side of things. So you have to have prod raw, source data, and so on. So if you have all these names set up correctly, that shouldn't be an issue once we start running the model. But these are our sources. And so obviously you can add as many sources as you want. Say, for example, if you will have a new schema in this database or even the new database, you just add this as a new source. You can name it as you wish, to be honest. But the main thing is that you have to make sure that the names of the database schema and tables are called in the same way as in your data warehouse in Snowflake in our case. So this file we have to create because dbt needs to know where to go and connect to data, but then we don't really need to do anything about it. The next step for us is to create our first model in the bronze layer. And this will be, for example, sales transactions. So one of the major documents that we have. So let's just add a new file it should be inside the bronze folder. And we will call it VW underscore sales, bronze sales transactions. And that will be a SQL file, so .sql. So just to make sure we're on the same page, if you want, I can also I can copy the name of the file. Oh yeah, sorry, I confused myself. So the name of the file I shared in the chat is actually how it should be. So it should be bronze. Oh, no, it doesn't type. It should be bronze, and I will explain to you why that should be this way. Bronze __ VW sales transactions. I see that there is a question.
Yes.
Is there a benefit to create the layers as separate databases in comparison to using schemas within the same database? That's a great question. And the answer is usually just from the point of view of managing the whole infrastructure and setup, and to benefit from certain features like data sharing or data cloning in Snowflake, it is recommended to have, like we do, one account, and then you would have different databases. For example, now we have development databases, then we will have, well, like we already have production raw. This is just one. We're not duplicating it in this case. If you have any requirements in terms of we cannot have users accessing production data, for example, if they do not have certain permissions, or the data has to be separated, say maybe in financial services or healthcare production from development, then you might be forced by these regulations to have separate accounts. But in general, just for the ease of management and making sure that everyone works from the same and in the same setup, it is recommended. The easiest way is to have one account and then have separate databases and different schemas. In terms of also splitting them by layer, for example, bronze, gold, and silver, it's easier to have them as different databases because you can quite quickly understand that you have way more maybe different domains or different data sources, and they are not fitting really into just different tables. So it's easier to split them into different schemas into the same database and have, say, like, say, imagine if we have Salesforce and then some banking data and then something else as our sources. So I would prefer to have them as different schemas in Bronze, just for from the management point of view, so you can understand what data source you're working with. But if you don't have that much data, might be a good option to just have it in one database. Right, so while I was chatting, we should have created the first model. So again, it's called bronze double underscore VW sales transactions. So why it is important to have this naming convention? Because the macros that I was telling you about before, they do know where to look for your level of the model, and they will kind of remove it to have a clean name for the object. We'll see in a second in Snowflake. In dbt, all your files across the whole project, all your model files have to have unique names. So in this case, most likely you will not have maybe sales transactions model from another data source, for example, but it's always a good idea to have the layer, sorry. So in this case, bronze. VW in this case is a sign that it's a view. It's kind of like a traditional just naming convention. But the macro will split and remove this bronze double underscore prefix, and then your object will be just called VW underscore sales transactions in Snowflake. That's why I'm quite specific in terms of how to name your models. Again, that's just my suggestion here. If you find something that works better for your use case, that's obviously not set in stone. But yeah, so let's create the code actually for our model. And the code in this case for bronze layer will be very, very easy. Select star from, and then instead of you actually saying, okay, prod raw dot source data dot sales transactions in this case, you use a very special way how it is done in dbt. You are referencing your source, but you're referencing it dynamically. So you're saying, go look for the source gallery data and get me the table that's called sales transactions. So if I go to our sources YAML file, you can see, okay, this is the name of our source. I can call it a pink donut. As long as I have the same names in the source YAML and in this reference, dbt will understand. So gallery data is a little bit more clear. And then that's the table that I want to use for this model, so sales transactions. So this is how you can see how a sources file is used in dbt. And if we save this model, just make sure you save this file. Now we have our first model again, very, very simple, but that just will bring us all columns. And before we actually execute this code and see how the dbt will create this object in Snowflake, let's just quickly go to another file in the bronze folder, and that's called underscore schema YAML. So this is a standard file that's used across different layers of your project. And this file is specifying which model. So if I go to my bronze sales transactions, so I'm saying, okay, there will be a model that's called bronze underscore and so on. You can also add the description. We will see in the documentation where you can see it. We specify in configuration where dbt should create it in Snowflake. So you can see that we're saying create it in the database called bronze and the schema called CRM data. So you may say, oh, wait, but we don't have the bronze database. We have dev underscore bronze. And that's where these macros come in. So when you deploy this project, you don't need to go and change the references. dbt will, when you run it in production, dbt will say, okay, you're using a different target, different environment. So I will just create it as prod_bronze. But we don't need to change. If you set it up like as dbt suggests with all these macros, all these references are dynamically changed, and you don't need to go back and update them when you are developing versus when you are deploying. And then we have all our different columns from the table. Again, I created this file for you, so you don't need to type, but basically you have the name of the column and then the description. Some of them have tests. We will check them out later in a later part of this workshop. But again, these are just standard tests in dbt, which you can use to automate the data quality checks. So to run the model, you do need to make sure that it is included in this schema YAML file. Otherwise, dbt will not know, if we go back to the configuration, where to create it. So in this case, bronze CRM data schema. So these are the three models that we will create in bronze. They have exactly the same structure in terms of the documentation. So maybe let's create them and then run them all together to see how it will look like in Snowflake. So we just basically need to create 2 more files in the bronze folder. You can even copy these names. So let's do a new file. So I'm creating bronze artwork inventory file. And which one was another one? Artist profiles. Let's see. .sql again. And again, we are not going to do any cleaning or anything like this in this case. So we just do a very simple select star. So I am now in the artist profiles bronze model. So that's going to be, again, the same idea, select star from, and then we reference the same source gallery data, but we are saying take a different table that's called artist profiles. So save that and do the same thing here in artwork inventory model, but I just obviously need to change the name of the table to be artwork inventory. So make sure to save it. So we should have 3 models in our bronze folder, 3 new files: artist profiles, artwork inventory, and sales transactions. And now we are ready to run dbt. No, smaller. We're ready to run dbt and see how it will create objects in Snowflake. So I don't see any questions in the chat, but feel free to put them there. So to create models, to tell dbt to execute our SQL scripts, we just need to write a very simple command. So it's dbt run. So in my terminal, I just say dbt run. Because we created only models in the bronze folder, I actually, if I say dbt run, it will run everything in my project. I don't have anything else, but just to be a little bit more specific, we can also say dbt run space double hyphen select, and then specify. We can go very granular. We can specify one model to run. But we can also specify the path to these models. Now, since we're already in this folder, actually, we can just say select models and bronze because we're already in this folder. So that's, let me, okay, I can't copy it, but yeah, we need to say dbt run space _select and model/bronze. And then if we press enter, hopefully everything will work. You will get some warnings, which is fine. You can ignore them for now. But the main thing that you need to see is when you run it, you will see the list, the kind of like the information about the results of your job. You will have the models that dbt started running. So we have our 3 objects, 3 models, and then the results of the run. They are very small, of course. We don't have that much data, so it took very little time. But you can see that all of these models ran successfully and everything completed correctly. Hopefully, do let me know if that worked on your side. And now if I go to Snowflake, just refresh it to make sure that it brings the last changes, you can see that in my dev bronze database, I have a new schema that's called CRM data with my name, with my username rather, in Snowflake. So on your side, you should see underscore and then your username. And then we have the views created, and we can see them in Snowflake. We can explore the data, and we can start working with them. They're just normal objects in Snowflake now and ready for you to use. Did that work for everyone? If you have any issues, do share in the chat.
So I'm having an error actually. Non-relative patterns are unsupported, whatever that means. So something with arguments in the wrapper. So I don't know what that.
If you can put your great, Natalie. If you can put the command that you ran in the chat, we can have a look at that. But it looked like it worked for others. Make sure also that you are in the correct folder. So you should be in the workshop gallery project. That's the so if you are in the gallery project, workshop/gallery project, you can just run tests. You can just run dbt run select, but then basically remove everything until bronze. Let me just copy this here, the updated one. That I don't think I need the. I was confused. Yeah, no, I don't need this thing. Yeah, so you should try running this, and if you are in the correct repository, then it should work for you as well. Just basically
Should
remove
be
everything.
in gallery projects.
Right, but I see that there are no other concerns, so that's good.
Yes, so that would be in the gallery projects folder. And if you dare run this command, then it should work.
Yeah, if everything works, if everything was set up correctly.
It's good. Thank you.
Yay! Great.
Nice.
So congratulations, everyone. You just built your first dbt models, and you see that with all some learning experiences, but we do have the first layer of our model, which is lovely. And I want to show very quickly in Snowflake. So I'm in the bronze database in my schema. So if I go, for example, sales transactions in the view, there is this tab lineage that you can also use to see what object this view is built on top. So you can see that it's our prod raw source data. So that's also a nice way to track your objects and see how are they connected in Snowflake. But we'll see how to do it in dbt as well. So let's get on. One thing that we can do before moving on to the silver layer is to add our reference files, as I was saying. So this is happening. All these reference files are called seeds in dbt, and they are saved in the seeds folder. So if you, let me close all this files. So if you go into seeds folder, you will see there again a similar structure within the YAML file, just specifying all our files that we want to load. And we want to load them, in this case, into a separate schema, just so we can track it a little bit better. And that's called manual input. So it's also in the same bronze database. So in our case, it will be dev bronze. But the schema will be slightly different, just so we know that these are the files that we added manually. And as I said, there are 3 files. We're actually going to use just one, but I just wanted to give you a little bit more data in future to play around. The good thing about seeds that to create an object for them, to create a view or a table for this object, you don't need to create any models. Once you added the CSV files into the seeds folder, once you added them into the YAML file, you can just run a command, and we will do that as well together in dbt. That's called dbt. I always forget whether it's a little bit embarrassing, but I always forget whether it's singular or plural, but dbt seed, just singular. Okay, so we will need to run dbt seed. Again, there are a lot of different specific configurations you can add to your commands in dbt. So here again, you can specify just one seed to run, but they're very small, so we will just run dbt seed command. And that should create, yeah, you can see that again, the structure is the same. It says, oh, I'm starting to run these files. Okay, I created these objects in Snowflake now. So if I go to Snowflake, if I refresh my view, so this is what we created earlier. And now you can see I have a new schema, manual input, again with my username. And if you go in, you will see 3 tables created. So these are the one table for specific CSV files. So the commission rate is the one that we're going to use in a second. And this is just a tiny table created for you. So you can run dbt seed. It will rerun and overwrite existing tables. So just to keep this in mind, if you do want to keep history somehow, you might need to think about how to do it. But in general, this is a very easy way to add this kind of lookup tables. Also a good thing that these tables will be added into your, well, they're already a part of your GitHub repo, your dbt project. So say I added commission rates file, I'm happy with my work, I added it into the main branch of my repo. A month later, I need to change commission rates. If I do that, there is a record of who and when changed what in a certain file. So it's not lost, all these changes. So that's a very good thing about using seed files for this kind of use case in dbt. See that there are no comments. I hope that everyone is having the same results, so that you created your seed files, your tables in the bronze table. So we basically finished with our bronze layer. So I want to move on to the, I want to move on to the silver layer. It's not significantly different from bronze layer, and to be honest, all these different folders, you can also just put everything in one, but then it will be very difficult to somehow process them in slightly different way. You really have to maintain a very long file, so I would really recommend to stick to this structure. So if we look into the silver folder, again, I made it a little bit easy for you. I already have the YAML file with the schema and the description of the tables. Not all columns are described, so apologies for that. But the main idea is still the same. It's exactly the same format. You need to have the config to say where to create your files. So for this workshop, I think I have an artwork, the silver artwork, which we are not actually going to use. So you have it in the solutions, but just for the workshop, so you don't get a lot of errors, if you can remove the, let me just make sure, but I found it just this morning, and I thought, well, everyone already had the repo clone. So yeah, but if you can just remove this from line basically 16 to 32, if you can just delete it and save the file, because otherwise it just will give you some test failed, but we're not going to create this model. So sorry about that. What we will create is we will create two models. We will have one dimension model, which is our silver dim artist. So that's going to be a repository of all the artists that we work with. And then we will have a silver fact daily sales. This is going to be, again, the table that will store all our daily sales with some additional details. So the process is still the same. In the silver folder, we would need to create two files. So let's start maybe with silver _dim artist. Again, it will be a SQL file. And I'm going to. So let's. So yeah, I just pasted it. You can also do select star. I just wanted to select specific columns since I don't need to bring other ones. But basically here I'm using CTEs, the common table expressions, to say first I want to bring data about the artist. And this data is stored in our bronze layer, if you remember, in the model that's called in the view, that's called artist profiles. And again, like what we did with the bronze layer, with the sources, if you remember, we did not hard code the reference to the table. We added this dynamic reference saying, take this source and this table. And then once you have already things, once you have models created in dbt, you can reference them. So again, instead of hard coding your references to views or tables in your database, you can use these dynamic references, and dbt will understand that. Again, that's why it's important to have unique names for your models. dbt will just take the name of the model that you are referencing here, and we'll say, oh, okay, I will go and find which object, which model it refers to. Okay, where does it have it in Snowflake? So that's the great benefit of dbt. That's why it's so easy to work with and to adapt into this kind of modular approach, that all your references are dynamic. So you can move around different environments like we do dev, prod, and maybe testing, and move also potentially across different accounts of databases. So that's one of the great benefits of dbt. So in this case, I'm saying I want to bring data about artists. So the CTE for the artist is with artist as, and then again, you can say select star. The main thing is that you need to say from, and there is this syntax, double curly quotes, ref, and then in normal parentheses, you have the name of the model in quotation marks. So I can also, if it's to save you some typing, I can also share it in the chat. So first, I'm bringing data about artists. Second, I need to actually add the information. If we look at the artist profile, I don't have details about what commission rate each artist has. I do have it in the table with my commission rates in the seed table that we created. And I can connect this commission rates table to my artist using the artist tier. So every artist, if we look at the artist profile, yeah, they do have the artist tier field, and that's the same field that we have in commission rates. So I'm saying, bring me the details about artists, bring me the details about commission rates, and you see the seed files, the CSV we reference in exactly the same way, like we would do another model in DBT. And then I'm just saying, okay, let's join the artists to the commission rates table and on the artist tier, and let's bring the commission rate into this final selection. And I'm also calculating the artist age just to have maybe like an idea of whether this impacts somehow the sales or whether it impacts the performance of artist work on the market. But that's just an additional thing. You can also obviously add some additional logic here if you want to calculate something, and anything else really that can be added. But at the end, you should have this final table, in this case, to see the list of all our artists with their names, tiers, and in this case, in the end, commission rate. So that will be useful for us for our report. And let's actually run this model. So just to create this one object, I shared the code, the SQL in the chat. So again, to save you some typing. So we can do dbt run, and then we can do, as I was saying, select. Let me actually. Okay. Just so it's a little bit easier for you to see, dbt run select. And then, as I was saying, that we can just reference the one single model. So in this case, it will be silver under double underscore dim artist. Okay. And that will run only this model. So if I run it now, you should see, yeah, it picked up only one model and it ran it, and it successfully completed. The strange thing, though, and maybe, oh, I do have it. Did I misspell it? That for some reason it created it in a different schema. I don't know whether it worked for you, but for some reason it created it in the dev bronze. So I wonder why. If I run it again, that should work. No, it still works in a funny. Silver dim artist. Did I misspell it? No. Did it work for you if you run it? No, it just creates it in why sometimes that works. A very silly thing. Yeah, it did work. So for some reason, I don't know how it happened. Oh, you can copy the.
Yeah, I think the host need to enable the copy or something in Zoom.
Okay. No, okay, sorry. Let me bring the model back. But yeah, that should, I didn't change anything. So again, as I said, if you don't want to type, you can just say select star from the artist profiles model, and then commission rate. Again, you can just do select star from the commission rate. And then in the final statement, you need to join on you need to do the left join of artists to commission rates on the artist tier. You can also no, that's exactly the one. That's exactly the one. Oh, okay, so some people can copy. Okay, fine.
Okay, does it make a difference if I paste it? I'm looking for the option to allow pasting, but I don't see it.
Okay. To make it a little bit maybe easier for next time. You can also to share with you. Yeah, so that was also strange on my side. And added it originally to the dev bronze, Natalie, that's what you were saying. The silly thing, and you can try it as well on your side, if you can go to silver folder to schema YAML file, and you change the dimension, the name of the schema basically, if you can just put it in the lowercase, I don't know why it works sometimes. It shouldn't technically. But that worked for me. So let me refresh it just to make sure. Yeah, so I now have dimensions and then the table in this dimension. Sorry, that's what I wanted to say. So if you cannot copy from the Zoom chat, which is annoying, you can also see these models in the solutions folder. So if you want to in GitHub, so you can copy it from there. I mean, it's also in your repo as well, in the gallery project, in the models. Yeah, so all of the models that were built in there. But yeah, so try changing the capitalization, and yeah, okay, great. So I don't know why it worked for me when I was testing, and now it just stopped. So okay, we are on the same page. It all worked. We have one more thing to create in the silver. So this is our fact daily sales. Let's get on with that. So yes, fact daily sales. Again, I would just copy that no, I didn't need that. Yeah. So again, you can see the final model in the solutions folder. So if you want to copy instead of typing it, but basically here I'm saying get me all transactions, sales transactions from the sales from the bronze layer that we created earlier. I'm just casting the sale here as a date just in case. And then also bring me the details about the artworks, the artwork ID and the artist ID. Because in the transactions, I only have the artwork ID, I don't have the artist. So I want to be able to match the sales with the artist. So I do need to have this artist ID, sorry. And then the final thing that I'm doing here is I'm joining the artworks, sales on the artworks to make sure that I have the artist ID added into my sales data. So that will just give us the table with the sales. And we can do the same thing. Let's see if that, oh no, sorry. Let's see if that works. Silver fact. So I'm running dbt run select silver fact daily sales. Haven't changed anything, so let's see if it oh no. Oh, I didn't save. Well done. That should work now. Okay, yeah. For some reason it didn't like the capitalization, so I'll have to go back and change in my schema YAML with silver, change facts to lowercase. I have no idea why it didn't like it, but I noticed that happens sometimes. So if I run that, that should give me, yes. Now if I go to my silver, just close that. Yeah, I have my dimensions with the artist table and the fact daily in my facts table. So you should have this now on your side. So dim artist and fact daily sales in the silver dev_silver schema. Oh, sorry, database. And then you should have two schemas for dimensions and for facts. Right. So now the final thing, because I do want to show the testing side of things. So I want to create the gold schema. And if I go into my gold folder, Again, there is the file for you with the details, with the documentation for the table. Let me just change it to the lowercase before we run it and it doesn't work again. So we just need to create one model in the gold layer. This is going to be the final model for our commission report. So let me create it here. Again, this is all available, the actual code in the solutions folder. So if you don't want to type, I can paste it also here, but it's also available via the link. And here I'm aggregating my sales data for each month. I don't need to see it on a daily basis as it was in the original raw data. And I'm bringing the details about the artist, the tier, the commission rate that we have now. And then I'm calculating the total sales for the month. I'm calculating the commission amount. So that's on line 24. And I'm also looking at, on the next line, how many artworks were sold per artist in this month. So I am, sorry, that was the top thing. So I am bringing my fact daily sales, dimension artist, and then joining them to get this aggregated view. Yes, that's a great question, Sai. That's the materialization. Let me save this before I forget. The materialization of the objects can be defined on the specific model level if you want to be very granular. But if you go into the DBT project YAML file, at the bottom where you have models, so line 34 further, you can define this on the project level. So you can see that everything in bronze will be created as view. Gold will be also created as view, but the silver will be table. So this is applied at the project level. If you specify something for a particular model, say you want to create a model in the gold layer, which will be table, you can do that. You just need to specify it in the model in a separate config. That will be overwriting the overall project settings. So that's where you can see that setting. So if I go back to my gold model, just to kind of, again, see we have our fact, our dim with artist, we're just joining them together to get and aggregate them to get the monthly sales. So I save that. And now I can do a similar thing like I did, let me actually, like I did with the, I bring my, DBT run, and you remember when we ran the bronze models, I said models bronze. In this case, I'll say models gold. So if I run that, it will run only my gold model. Yeah, it ran it, in my case, correctly. If I refresh, where's my gold? Yeah, I see reports schema now, and that's my monthly commission report view. I can see the lineage, which is very nice. You can see where things are coming from. And you can go and explore further left and left to see the full lineage and understand how the data is being transformed, joined, or combined with other data sources. And you can also see, of course, the preview. Do you have any issues or questions on your side? I don't see any questions in the chat. I just want to quickly show you the testing, because I think that's a very powerful thing in DBT. So first of all, congrats. We have built the pipeline, as I was saying. So if I go again to lineage, you can see for your monthly report where the data is coming from, how it is joined to other data sources. So now we can actually go and see. I have prepared some quick SQL queries. We can actually see.
Maybe,
Yeah.
sorry, before we move on, I see there we have a question about getting the gold layer. maybe Natalie, if there is an error that you get
an
when
error,
you command, maybe would you like to share that real quick?
Okay. What do you mean that it does not appear in Snowflake, you mean? But your command runs successfully. Okay. So it should be in the development goal. You might try the same trick. I don't know why it sometimes doesn't work, but change the schema in the gold layer to lowercase reports. And that,
maybe also, so if you share the output, like the non-error output of the command, maybe we can see something.
but yeah, because I don't know why it should work,
but then maybe we can also move on for the moment.
Yeah.
If the lowercasing works, that would of course be excellent. Otherwise, feel free to drop just the output of the dbt command, and then we can circle back. All right.
Sounds good. Yeah, it worked. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Thanks.
It's not a good day, clearly, for capitalization this time. So yeah. Okay, so what I was saying that now we have our pipeline, and now we can actually run, for example, a simple query in Snowflake and see, let me rerun it again, to see, for example, for the December 2025, which was the artist. I can also see actually the nice chart here as well. Which artist had the highest sales amount? So sorry, this is the commission amount, but I can also bring the sales amount. So yeah, it's the same artist actually. So we can see artist with the ID 153, or rather with the name 153. It's very imaginary data set, had the highest amount of sales, and obviously they had the highest commission rate. So we imagine we are the gallery, we combined all our data, we're very happy it all worked, and we say, oh wow, this artist made a lot of money this month, so we need to pay whatever, 25,000 of dollars. Wow, that's quite good. But the good thing about dbt that we actually can also test the data to make sure that our calculations are working correctly. So if we go back to our dbt, until now, we have been running the command that's called dbt run. So let's dbt execute objects and create them in your data warehouse. But there is also a command that's called dbt test. And you can also run it, if you run just dbt test, it runs it on the overall project. You can also run it for specific models, for specific folders. Let's just run it for everything, for dbt. Let's run dbt test. And that will pick up while it runs. You can see that there are a lot of things happening in the background. So you can see that if I scroll a little bit further, similar structure as we saw with running the models. Every test that you have, and I'll show you in a second the tests, you will have either pass or fail for every test that you have in your project. And then you have the kind of like a summary at the end. Oh, it completed. We have 30 tests, and it completed with 3 errors. So you can see each test that failed, and you can see where you can find the query that was run as well. So first, where can we see our tests? So let's see, for example, we have accepted values we can skip for now, but let's look at the unique bronze sale transactions. So if I go to my bronze folder, and if I go to schema, and you remember that I mentioned that we have tests here, and that's where we come back to them. So you can set up tests in the schema, in the YAML file, for every field that you have in your table, if you want to. Obviously, it will be a little bit overwhelming, so just make sure that they do make sense. But there are quite a few generic tests in dbt, like unique and not null. which we're using here. So for example, this is artist ID. If I go to my sales transactions, I also have this test checking the uniqueness on the transaction ID because I want to make sure that I'm not duplicating transactions. And you saw that if I bring back the results, you saw that this is one of the tests that failed. And then it failed, of course, in the fact daily sales transactions. So if I go into my Snowflake very quickly, I have, here you go. I have the query to test the uniqueness of transactions ID. And you can see that I actually have 3 records for the same transaction ID, which isn't correct. It should be just one transaction ID. So it should be just one. So we clearly have some kind of duplication in this data set. So what we can do, of course, we should go back to our data, the system where this data is coming from and say, hey, maybe something is happening. Let's maybe see how we can fix this duplication potentially. But what we can also do, we can go back to our bronze sales transaction model and let me add this as well here. Let me add this deduplication statement here. Basically just saying, get me for every sale date, there has to be one transaction ID. So just remove all the duplicates. So you can maybe, if you want, you can just watch. For now, I just want to quickly show how it will change. So I added this deduplication statement here. But of course, I will need to recreate my view definition in Snowflake because it doesn't have this statement yet. So what I can do, I can say, oops, not here. I can say dbt run and rerun the whole project because it will be very quick. It's a small data sets. But what I can do as well, I can say dbt run. Well, let's run the whole project. It will recreate our views, but also will rebuild our silver layer where we also had the duplication. Okay, so everything worked. So now let's do our tests again. And that should give us, there was one test failing because there was some, that we get back to, but what we did is we removed the duplication. So now if I rerun the same query, it doesn't give me a result. So this query basically checks whether there are any duplications in our data. So there are no duplications. You saw the test passed. And if we go back to by the way, all these scripts are also in the folder, so you will be able in the solutions, so you will be able to look through them and see how the data changes. But if I go back to my query to get me the top artists with the top sales, you remember the artist with the name 153 was at the top of our list with the 25,000 in commission. If I rerun this query now, I get a very different picture. My artist 153 is actually quite further down at the bottom, and we have a very different artist now at the top. So you can see that we actually made sure that our data is correct and we are paying the correct amount to the correct artist. So not only we saw in DBT that our tests are passing, I will get back to the one that is not passing yet, but we were able to identify the duplicates, we were able to fix that, and we were able to see in our reporting that we actually were just about to overpay someone the commission that they actually didn't earn. So we did it all manually now, in the sense we ran the commands manually now, but you can orchestrate your DBT core with, say, tools like Airflow, for example, and set this to run, I don't know, every day, every week, depending on your data. And so next time, when someone else in the company accesses this monthly report data, they will be able to, without recalculating, rebuilding everything, they will be able to see the results as of the last run of the dbt command. So it's very powerful in terms of automating your data quality checks. And the one test that actually failed as well is another type of test. If I go back to schema YAML, that is in our sales transactions, and it says payment method field. So again, the same model. I think it's at the bottom. Yes. So you can see that there is a slightly different type of test. It's called accepted values. So in my case, it's line 117. And I know that I have only this type of payment methods: cash, credit card, debit card, wire transfer. And so I want to make sure that there are no weird payment methods added to my data. But clearly there is something wrong in my data. So if I quickly go this one, yeah. So I have this query. So if I query my bronze table to get the list of unique payment methods, I can actually see that I have everything that I'm expecting, but there is one you see on the line 3 here that's called just credit. So clearly I need to go back to my source data and see how I can fix it and make sure that it doesn't appear in my data again. So again, next time you fix something, you run your queries, you will see the values that are not, or rather the models that are not following the data quality results that you expect. And one thing before I show you the documentation very quickly, I wanted to talk about is where you can see actually. So if I go to say like even the gold layer model, obviously Snowflake or any other database, they won't understand these references and this kind of dynamic curly braces that dbt uses. But dbt behind the scenes, it makes your life very easy, and it transforms these references dynamically into the specific names of the tables. And you can see this if you look in your, close down, in your dbt project, there is a folder called target. And it's created every time you run a dbt command. And you can see that there are 2 folders in this target directory. One is compiled and one is run. So compiled stores, and if you go further, you see exactly the same structures you have in your models folder. You can see the actual SQL that dbt runs. So you can see that it actually has the hard-coded values in this case. If I go to say silver, for example, that will be referencing my schema on your side. It will be referencing your schema. So you see that I can give you the same code, but it will pick up the correct references and run it. So you can also use this target folder to check what actually is run against my data warehouse. And not only for models, but in the run folder, there should be, in the compiled, in the schema kind of subfolder, you see every test, the actual SQL that dbt runs to check the test that you set up. So here is checking whether the artist ID is null or not. So the folder target is very, very useful because you can understand what actual SQL scripts are running against your warehouse to debug also. That's one of the first places you can go and check. So that was our testing. We built the pipeline, we tested it, we fixed the duplication, we now correctly paying everyone. One last thing I wanted to show is the documentation. So you saw all these definitions for fields and tables. So if we run dbt docs generate command, that tells dbt to go through all the files that you have, all the models and everything, and create certain metadata files. And you can see that it's also created in the target folder, like manifest and semantic manifest and all that. So it will say, okay, catalog written into some direction, into some file. Great. But now we can run dbt docs serve, and that will take these generated files and will show them to you in a very nice, you see it automatically open, view where you can see our project, you can see, say, our models. You can understand what is happening in each model. You can see our descriptions here, the tests that we have. You can see individual columns, which models it's referenced by. And you can also click on this model to go and see more about that. The row count, you can see the actual code that is in dbt, but also the code that will be run in Snowflake. And there is this green lineage thing in the lower right corner. That's your lineage graph. So if I remove actually the selection here and say update graph, that's the one that I was showing you earlier. That's our pipeline with the green sources on the left, the bronze, silver, and then finally gold layer on the right side. So this is our pipeline that we built. And you can click into each of these models to see how it is connected to other nodes. So this view in dbt is called DAG. It's a let me bring the slides. That is, I always forget the word, the directed acyclic graph. Here we go. So this is how you would refer to this type of arrangement. So directed, it means that there is only one direction. So it goes from left to right. It cannot go backwards, for example. It cannot loop as well. So if you will, by accident, create some kind of looping relationship, one model goes to another, and then the second model kind of connects to the original one, dbt will tell you, and it will not be able to run your pipeline. Actually, it will give you the warning. And then graph, because it has this kind of nodes and edges, so you have the connections between your data sources, your models, if you have custom tests, you will see them here as well. So if you start working with dbt, you will hear that a lot, the DAG. So that's the overall lineage of your project, of your dbt project. So you can see that. Let me go back to the dbt documentation. So you can see that this documentation has a lot of different things that you can explore. You can see your seeds, obviously. You can also see how the objects are created and placed in your data warehouse. So that's also quite useful to kind of match the models with the actual objects. When you use dbt core, this documentation is local, so you can see that it's all served from my local machine. When you use dbt cloud, this is a managed hosted version of dbt core. There is a free version for one developer seat, but in general, it's a paid product. They have this documentation available for you in the browser, so you don't need to host it yourself. But some people do host this for dbt core on their own environment. So that's something I wanted to say about the docs, and then tests. We already have looked into that. I know we are getting to the end, so do you have any questions, or do you want me to go over any specific things that you maybe missed or want to see again? Or if you have in general any questions about dbt and Snowflake and how they work together. Let me bring back my slides. Yeah, in my slides, I do have the list of commands, but again, slides are available in the repo and some useful resources.
So it looks like there are no immediate questions, but I am
do
curious.
have a question.
Yeah.
I couldn't find the raise my hand button. I'm not very used to Zoom. That's why I'm late. Thanks for the demo. It's really nice. And I'm quite new to DBT. So I was wondering if you can walk us through like what do you usually organize a project? I think in this project, the folders have already set up. And is this a normal way or recommended way, or there are some differences for different projects?
No, that's you do need to have all these folders like models and macros as well. You don't have to have, say, for example, analysis. If you don't have, it's a different type of transformations in DBT. If you don't have them, you don't need to have this folder. But models and macros, tests are usually the folders you have. That's a good question. I will add this into the slides, but DBT has some best practices guides with links to the sample projects as well. So I will include that in slides.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Are there maybe like also templates that DBT provides?
So because we did have the repo, you didn't need to do that. But when you create DBT project from scratch, there is a command DBT init, like to initiate the project, and that will actually create a super basic structure with all the folders and like DBT project YAML and README. So that happens as well. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
How did you get the histograms in your Snowflake home view? So I don't have them.
So if I go to the command this one, so this is a new thing. That's why I'm saying that some people might not see it yet, but this is a new thing that's called workspaces. So you can see that there are all these different parts like UI and ID, and so when you run the query, you get this histogram, but you can also see it as a chart. There's a different view. So you might, if you don't have the project's workspaces, your account might still need to be updated. I got this literally this morning, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, so this is a great question about switching between dev and production. So if there are any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, but that's actually something that I wanted to show as well. So let me close all these things. So if I go back to the DBT profiles folder and the profiles YAML file, you remember that we had this description of all the configuration for our account, and at the top you see on line 2 it says target dev. So target, as I was saying in DBT, that's how they refer to the environment, so where you want to run your commands. And you can have many targets. And you can, like I literally copied the settings above. You can try it afterwards as well. But the only thing I changed is instead of dev, I said prod. The rest is exactly the same. So actually, let's do that. So I need to stop my docs. Okay. So you remember that we ran a DBT run when we wanted to run the whole project. I did not add anything else, and by default, if I go to DBT project, no, sorry, yeah. In DBT project, you have the target path, and it says target. No, so it was in the profiles. basically you set up so the development environment is the default one. So if you don't specify anything, you just say dbt run, it will just take your development profile. But what you can do is say dbt run, then target. So this is a separate, a different. You're saying I want to use a specific target, specific environment, and in my case it will be prod. So if I do that, dbt will say, aha, she doesn't want to use the development target, she wants to use the prod. And it gives me the error saying, oh, you don't have the database prod_silver. So as you remember, if I refresh that, yeah, we had our dev_something databases. So let me very quickly create, create this prod bronze. That was a good point, I forgot about that. So let me just create the silver and the gold. So in production, that's a big thing as well that you need to consider. So create. So I have now my prod_bronze, gold, and silver databases. So if I run my dbt run target prod command again, that should go fine. It all successfully, oh yeah, I know why. It creates the files in the bronze layer. So if I go to my bronze, you can see that it created CRM data views. And you notice that because I have the macros that I was talking earlier, it does not add my username. Because in production, you don't need to have a username. Everyone should access the same data. While in the bronze, I had my username added to my schema because other people might work on the same data. Why I don't have I'm getting the error here in the silver layer because I obviously don't have the seeds created. So I can do it exactly in the same way. So dbt seed and then keep the target prod flag. That will create my seed tables. Yeah, lovely. So if I refresh that, I'll get a manual input schema with tables. Yeah. And now if I rerun my dbt run target prod, that should go fine without errors. What I was going to say is that obviously this is just a basic workshop, but in production environment, you need to make sure that you give your whatever user is running your dbt commands correct permissions. So if some people want to have a lot of restrictions around who can create databases, for example, so you need to create the database first and then run it. Sometimes people say, no, the dbt user can also automatically create database if it doesn't exist and just create schemas there. So, but yeah, that's our production goal and our view in reports. Can you connect with streaming data to Snowflake and dbt? So you can stream data to Snowflake. And you can use something that's called dynamic tables in Snowflake that process the data as it comes in. But it won't be, because you do need to ingest the data and then transform it in a certain way, it might be not, say, immediate, like milliseconds or something like this. So you just need to understand how fast you need the data, like immediately as it appears in your dashboard, for example. That will be a little bit tricky because you do have all these steps like ingestion and then transformation. But there is an option to stream data using Snowpipe in Snowflake, and then you can use dynamic tables to process it as it comes in. And there was a question, Snowflake charts work as Tableau. They are quite quite basic in terms of the functionality. So you can actually, where is that project? Yeah, you can actually create dashboards using SQL queries in Snowflake, but they are obviously not they are not as robust as Tableau, because Tableau is a dedicated BI tool. But they are quite nice in terms of if you want to explore data or you want to share the results with others, so you can play around what fields you add. And I believe there is also option to filter. There are also different types of charts that you can use. So yeah, but it's not designed as a dedicated BI tool.
Okay, do we have any more questions?
And yeah, while we are waiting, as I mentioned earlier, all the models that we built today and all the slides and everything is going to be, it's already in the solutions folder in the repo, so you can check the DBT project, or you can check. Make it slightly bigger. You can check the queries that I ran in Snowflake. You can run them in your Snowflake environment as well to see the same results.
Okay.
And if you, here we go. If you don't have questions now, but then you think, oh, I have another question. Oh, I'm going the opposite direction. Feel free to always reach out to me. And that's a great question, Anna. In the slides, there are some links to documentation, but also there are some quick starts. Oh, sorry. That you can use to, it's literally hands-on projects that you can use to learn about DBT Core, but also DBT Cloud, so you can see the difference. And one thing I forgot to mention, that there is such thing as now you can run DBT Core project directly on Snowflake. It's in the public preview, so it's not in general availability yet, but there is a quick start that you can try on your trial account while you have access to it. So again, that's in the repo.
All right, great. We are almost at the end, but well, thank you, Anya, for this amazing presentation. A lot of great information. DBT seems like, I personally never worked with it before, but seems like an amazing tool. I can't wait to build something with it, build something nice. Thank you for all the attendees, for all the questions, for the very interesting questions, and for the participation. I quickly want to use the last 2 minutes that we have to announce our next few workshops. In October, we are going to look at lightweight analytics at scale, hands-on with DuckDB and small pond in Python. So we are going to stay on topic with pipelining, although a bit more analytics focused. So if you're interested into snappy analytics at scale, don't miss that one. It's going to be an online event as well. And then in November, we are going to be building an AI agent with a developer from JetBrains, hopefully at the JetBrains office here in Amsterdam. Otherwise, it will also be an online event, but we're trying to get the in-person venue, and then it will be a hybrid event online and at the location. So thank you, everybody. I think that's it. Nothing else to share. Again, thanks, Anya, for the amazing workshop. Thanks for all to all the attendees for participating. And with well, we are pretty much on time. So thank you, everybody. I wish you all a great evening, and hopefully see you at our next event. Bye, everybody.
Yeah, thank you for joining, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.